Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of our clown show that we like to consider good broadcasting. Just sort of. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Justice Revolution. I am your host, your ever-loving James the Patriot. I have with me both of my so faithful co-hosts, Erica and Justice. Erica, say hello.
Hey.
Justice, say hello.
Friends.
All right, you guys, we've got a really good show today. I say this all the time, but we really do. And then I say that all the time, but we really do. I promise. I just want to give a quick shout out to some friends that are always watching. Thank you, C to AZ, and Say What? Hello from Arizona. What's up, Say What? And then we got Trayson, looks like a Pennsylvania vet. Thanks for being here. And I'm assuming that means veteran, not a veterinarian. So thank you, Diesel, for We the People. Thank you for being here. Let's we have a special guest who's going to join us hopefully here soon. Brent Johnson is his name. He is the author of The Sovereign American. I'll introduce him when we are able to bring him on. Thank you, Erica, for lining that up. She's had some interactions with Brent before. And I've actually been a fan of Brent. I've got his book. It's sitting over here somewhere. Yep, it's right over here on the other side of my desk. So I've got his book. He's got some good stuff we're going to go over. But I'm going to add him here to the screen. Brent, welcome. Can you hear us?
Well, hi there. And yes, I can. And pardon me, I'm not late. I'm right on time. I was told 1:30.
1:30 Eastern Standard Time. You're on Central. So.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
That's all right.
It's
been a strange.
It's Brent. It's okay. It's been a day. So Justice, God bless her. She was on the broadcast earlier. So we're both on Mountain Time, Justice and I. Erica's in Eastern Standard Time, and you must be in Central Standard Time. So this is what happens when you have people all over the country and you try to do a show.
And Erica, I thought you were I thought Erica was in Central Time. Oh my!
No.
Okay.
Are we? Am I too late to have people?
No. You're totally
available to hear what I have to say.
I wish you could have just heard my major tirade that I just went on, though.
I just heard a bunch of it.
Oh, you did hear some of it? Okay, good. All right. So you know where I stand anyway.
It was very good.
Yeah. I am just trying to figure all this stuff out. And I know that the people in our Telegram community are also trying to figure it out. And we're shut down a lot just from even asking questions because there's this idea of patriot mythology where it's the equivalent of you're a racist in other situations where it's meant to just shut you down and to keep you quiet from asking any more questions. But I'm glad you're here, Brent, so that you can address some of the stuff that
and those people, I don't remember who actually gave the quote, but the paraphrase of the quote is that when a well-crafted web of lies has been promulgated for a long enough time, speaking the truth will get people to speak out against you. And the truth teller will be called a crazy person, okay, a conspiracy theorist or whatever else. And so the reality is that everybody is always stating what his or her character is. And the character of people who shoot you down for speaking truth are people who don't value truth.
Yeah.
So
that is so true. So true, Brent. And I apologize not to cut you off. I want to give you the proper introduction that you deserve. So again, everybody, for those of you who are watching us live stream and for those of you who are listening to us on our podcast afterwards, a little mix up on the time zones there, but hey, we're glad he's here. And it's probably better that you're here now than you had to go through all of the garbage that we just went through. It's not garbage. It was good stuff, but you know what I mean? I was giving our listeners and our followers updates on existing court cases that we're dealing with. I've got a friend of mine who I'm going to have him on soon. He's dealing with a a township that thinks they have ownership rights in his property and is trying to tell him what he can do with his property. So we're going to have some fun with those idiots. But with that being said, I do want to give an introduction to Brent. So those of you know who may not know who Brent is can get a bit of understanding. I was introduced to Brent a while ago from a mutual friend of ours with Sean from the SGT report. So with that, Brent Johnson is the host of the internationally renowned Global Freedom Report. He's also a longtime talk show host for the Freedom Talk Show, The Voice of Freedom. He is the author of The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation, The Pursuit of Happiness, Freedom and the Human Spirit, and the spiritual book, The Quiet Voice of God. He's got a great website. It's freedomradio.us. That's freedomradio.us. You can find all of his Freedom, the Voice of Freedom podcasts there. You can also call him toll free at 888-385-3733. That's basically 888-385-FREE. Brent is the director of Freedom Bound International. It's a common law service center educating people about their sovereign rights. For more than 30 years, Brent has experienced more success than anyone else in teaching practical methods of living free from the endless encroachments of Big Brother. Brent is truly a modern-day fighter. Welcome to the show, Brent. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Modern-day freedom fighter. Freedom got cut off, but it's an important word because everything I do is about exactly that. And before I get into anything else, I just want to give you a very brief, if not discouraging, response to your issues in court. Something you have to, the things I heard you saying a few things, and what you were saying was true in principle, but you have to understand that the reason you have your property tax is because you have used government services you are not required to use, thereby voluntarily entering into their venue. This is how they can put zoning regulations. This is how they tax you. It's not a tax on your property. It's a tax on utilizing government services to which you are not required to use. And therefore, if you go and you say they have to prove it, it's not true. You have created by your actions a presumption that you are subject to. And by the way, just so you know, many, many years ago, I had 5 acres I owned in Hill Country, Central Texas. I had it for about 10 years. I never recorded it. I actually did a little, I did a little exercise, which my own amusement. I knew the answers anyway. But I sent a letter to the recorder, and it said, "Dear recorder, I'm thinking of buying property in this county, and I'd like to know, am I required by law to record it with the county recorder?" And I got no answer. So several weeks later, I sent a letter again. No answer. So several weeks later, I sent it the third time. This time I put a few teeth in it. You know, what's the matter with you? Why aren't you doing this? If you don't respond to me, then I'm going to go over your head, and, you know, just stuff. I got back my third letter, same letter, with a handwritten note signed by the recorder. No, you have no law. There is no law requiring you to record the property, which of course I knew. I never recorded the property that I purchased. I purchased it in a common law transaction, $25 in silver plus whatever the amount was that we agreed on. And I never recorded it. And I had it for almost 10 years, never paid a penny in property tax, never got bothered about it. So just a little tidbit about that. And this is the kind of stuff that I do. I actually have made myself the guinea pig for everything that I teach people. You know,
good.
I talk to you about getting rid of your social security number. I've done it. I'll talk to you about not owning property in your own name. I've done it. I own nothing. I'm a pauper. Because I own nothing, I have no liability. Because I have no liability, they leave me alone. Because there's nothing of mine they can take. Because I have nothing.
Yeah.
Therefore,
Justice, you have a question?
I live free. And I enjoy.
Justice, you had a question?
I do. We have a bit of a delay. Yeah, we have a bit of a delay, so apologize. So my question to you is, you said you had that property. Does that imply you've sold it or have given it away?
Yeah. No, I sold it.
Okay. So when you sell the property, does the person, so when the person purchasing, when the person purchasing that, does it create issues and problems in a transaction? Say they want to sit down with the title agency and the whole 9 yards, you know, because that's what they'll threaten you a problem is as well. I think he's frozen.
It was a private transaction. It was a private transaction. We came up with a price. They paid me the price. Okay. And the property, and then they could, you know, go record it or whatever else they want to do. Not my problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's a common
nothing. But I don't want to get really off point. I didn't I should have known if I bring up property taxes, everybody wants I want to go back to a foundational point, and that's the first thing I really want to.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. Sorry. I forgot about the delay.
What happened? No, you were saying something about that's a common, and then you stopped talking.
Oh yeah, I was just because of the delay is what I'm saying is no, that's a common misconception is that people think that they're required to register their property with the counties even when they purchase. So the struggle you're going to have, you know, for the everyday man or woman, and I'm just saying the everyday American that's just living their life, purchasing a property, and I'll use myself as example. My wife and I are in the process of building a home right now. So the builder has purchased the land from the landowner. We are going to be purchasing the property from the builder. Because we are securing, and I'm getting off on a tangent here, guys, and we don't have the time for this today, but I'm just telling you, this is the everyday scenario that people deal with. Because we're going to be securing a mortgage to purchase the property, the mortgage is going to require we get title insurance. The mortgage is going to require that we do a title search and all of these things. If you're smart, like you know, like Brent is, like Erica, like Justice, like myself, you can catch the little things. And what I've noticed is when the title company prepares the warranty deed, which conveys the title from the builder to, say, myself or to whomever else, they will oftentimes put a little snippet on there that says the tax ID number is this, and the property tax notices should be sent here. There is no law that requires that to be there. None whatsoever. I mean, the purposes, the original purposes for the county recorder was to settle property disputes. It had nothing to do with taxes. It was not about being able to tax everybody who just because you buy a piece of property that's within the geographical boundaries of the county or the state that you live in. It was because, hey, Joe Blow over here says he has ownership to this property, and Joe Blow over here says, no, this is my property. And they take that issue to court, and the court has no way of determining who has ownership because nobody has recorded anything or nobody has anything that proves they have ownership. So how do we settle these disputes? That, again, it's the small little foundational things that have been convoluted and turned upside down on their head and used for the improper purposes. Brent's not wrong. You want to sell your property to somebody else? I mean, how many times have we like sold a bike or something small where you just exchange cash and you're done? That's the difference. Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
So yeah, James, I would like to put that whole subject off to the side now, because you could do an entire show just on that subject. Okay. And I want to lay a foundation for everybody, because this will address what Erica was saying when I first came into the room. And it also addresses many of the things you just said as well. And it comes down to who and what each of you is. Now, You mentioned the Declaration. The Declaration actually is the foundation. Now, legal scholars will tell you the Declaration is not a legal document. It's written by people who were traitors. Okay, they were British citizens. Okay, and they were traitors to England. Okay, it's not a legal document, and that's what they will say. And they'll say the highest law of the land is the Constitution. That is not true. The Declaration lays out the principles on which the American Republic was established. And we all know the words, okay, you're endowed by your Creator with certain unalienable, meaning unchangeable rights. By the way, the word is unalienable, not inalienable, as many say. Inalienable means should not be changed. Unalienable means cannot be changed, or unalienable, as you said. So you're endowed by your Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I want to see a show of hands, folks. How many of you out there were created by the government?
You already know the answer to that.
If you weren't created by the government, you did not get your rights from the government. That's the first thing to understand. And therefore, the government can never take them away. Your Creator is the creator of the universe, unless you were created by the government. The creator of the universe is the ultimate sovereign. Sovereign means supreme ruler. So you're a child of the creator of the universe. That makes you part of the royal family. Now, I'm not saying this metaphorically. That's the thing.
This is the real deal.
Get. I'm not talking about this is the real deal. This is literal. You are literally part of the royal family. You are king. You are queen. You are the ruler, the supreme ruler of your life. And by the way, you should all start acting like it, because you haven't.
I agree.
So understand, first thing is you are sovereign. Now, most people have, due to ignorance or due to laziness or due to other things, have waived their sovereign rights. No one can take your rights. They could take your legs, they could take your arms, they cannot take your rights. So when I hear people say they're taking away my rights, they're not taking away your rights. The only thing that the government can do is violate your rights. And every time the government violates your rights, it is asking an unspoken question. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do about it?
Every time. Doesn't matter what the violation is. Every single time. We need to start answering that question. Because if you knew with your every fiber of your being that you were royalty, would you behave any differently when dealing with your public servants?
Absolutely.
That's where we are. We are royalty. Okay, our lives are our own. Okay, what we do with our lives, as long as we do not violate the life, liberty, or property of another, is up to us.
Right.
So that's the first thing that people need to grasp, because that's the foundation of everything else. You are royalty. You are in control. Well, but they do this and they do that. Yeah, what they're doing is violating your rights. And what are you going to do about it?
Right.
All the time. And by the way, if you stand up to a bully, you will find that the bully backs down. So if you do something, yeah, you'd be surprised. When you actually walk through the day holding your sovereignty, you'd be surprised how bureaucrats back down.
Yeah,
I've seen it for years. They do. They back down. They don't. They don't know how to handle that.
Right.
Because they're not trained to do that. So So the first thing is to grasp that you are sovereign. It's not a concept. It's not a philosophy. It is literally true. Now, that's the first step. Now, once you have that, then you pretty much have everything. You always have your rights. The problem is that people have done things they can't give away their rights, but they can agree not to use those rights. And that's what most people do. And why do they do it? For comfort, for convenience, because somebody tells them to do it. So you're talking about, James buying that property and everything, and the builder and all this stuff. Well, first off, with all due respect, you said that in order to get a mortgage, the mortgage company was going to require you to go through the title. That's all correct. In other words, you went to purchase something that you could not afford. That's the bottom line. You wanted to buy something that you could not afford. See, me, I have never owned a house. I've owned land, okay, but I've never owned a house. Why not? Because I don't have the money to pay for a house. When I have the money to pay for a house, I'll pay for the house, just like I pay for that land, which I didn't record. But until then, I'll rent. Now, people say, oh, renting is a waste of money. No, I'm paying for a service, and I'm getting that service. So I will rent. But we've been told that you want to be a homeowner, and we're going to make it easy on you. You don't need to have the money to buy the house. We'll give you the money, which we don't really do. Okay, and then you can buy the house. But there are conditions. Condition number one is you have to waive your God-given rights, sovereignty. And you do it all the time. You do it when you get a mortgage. You do it when you pay for something via a loan. On that, you can get a car that's better than your neighbor's, so you'll look better than your neighbor. And if you can't afford it, don't worry about it going to get it to you, and it's only going to cost you this much, and you're going to waive your rights because you are buying something you cannot afford to buy. There's no shame in not being able to afford to buy something. There's this thing about, well, you're as good a car as I have and everything. So what? I couldn't care less. Does my car work? Does it do what I want it to do? Does it get me from point A to point B? Yes. Then I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
And that attitude preserves your sovereignty. You go out, okay, when you go out to buy a house, what do? You go to title in the system, paying the taxes. But you don't want to be bothered with it. You hire an accountant to do your taxes. Why? Well, because it's too complicated for me. I'll let the accountant do it. The accountant is certified. By whom? By the government. And the accountant is trained to do everything to keep you in the system. But I don't want to be bothered with this. So, yeah. The reality is that if you grasp that you are the ruler of your life, then you are responsible for your life. You are responsible. Your accountant is not responsible. The attorney is not responsible. The title company is not responsible. The reason that I didn't record was because I knew I didn't have to. So I didn't. And because I didn't, I never got any notices of a property tax because there was no assessment of one. Because I made a choice as king of my life not to record. Now, but life gets so hard when I can't have these extra things. How do you know? I mean, my life really isn't that difficult. I earn a living. I actually make a decent amount of money. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a gun permit. I don't have a hunter's license. I don't have a voter's registration card. And I don't have a social security number. But I'm able to do all these things. Now, it's maybe a little less convenient for me. Okay. It's not as convenient for me. The question is, am I willing to endure the lack of convenience? The answer is yes, in a second. I've never thought for a moment of going back into the system. And there have been times that I haven't known where the next piece of food is coming from. But I have never, not for one moment, thought to go back into the system, because the government was not created to take care of you. The government comes out and says it's our job to keep you safe. That's not true. It is not your job to keep us safe. The very next words in the Declaration, right after life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, the very next words, to secure these rights, governments are instituted. In other words, the reason government exists, the reason we allow government to exist, is to protect the free exercise of our God-given unalienable rights and nothing else. It is not the role of government to feed you when you're hungry. I know people are going to say, I'm being uncompassionate. Not at all. Not at all. I have the utmost of compassion, and I think the best thing that anybody can do is to live the life that God intended you to live.
Yeah.
So, no, it is not. It is not the role of government to feed me if I'm hungry. It is not the role of government to give me health care when I'm sick. It is not the role of government to educate my children. It was not created to do those things. So when you ask the government to do those things, you need to waive your God-given rights. And that's exactly what you do. When you got your Social Security number, you got your voter's registration, you got your driver's license, all these things are a waiver of my rights so that I can enjoy the privilege of having the government take care of me.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think that what the most difficult part about America in the last, 20, 30 years, at least since I was growing up as a child, watching the financial demographic change greatly, is that they're slowly instituting a system into where you can't afford anything. They want you to rent everything. They don't want you to own anything. And they make it very easy for you to get sucked into the big bank monetary lending system. When I was a kid, on my parents' salary, we had a lot, and we make more. My husband alone makes more than both my parents did. And, we're on the line. It's very interesting. And 10 times easier to get any kind of financial aid that you want. They just jack up that interest rate and keep you enslaved forever. So I think it is part of their plan. And you really have to have grit like you, Brent, to step out of it and suffer some inconveniences and some a little less comfort.
Well, and that's it. Everything is made. Yeah, everything is made so convenient. I Freedom Bound. We provide products and services. People pay us for that. They pay us by money order. I will not take checks because checks are permanent. The banks keep permanent records of your information. It's none of their business. So I will not take checks. I will not take credit cards. And I will not let you pay for my services online. Why?
Yeah.
Because I value privacy.
Right.
It's a privacy issue.
Right.
But what do I give up? I give up convenience. I would make a lot more. I do quite well, but I would make a lot more if I was willing to sign up for all of these online ways. Just get the app and click here and boom. I've got my payment and all that. It would be tremendous.
Right.
I would be a multi-millionaire overnight. I've got the outreach. I've got the reputation, but I'm not willing to do that because I'm not willing to compromise my character or the character of what I do.
Yeah.
And that is about a value system. Today, the value systems almost across the earth, almost everywhere, are about money, position, and power.
Yep.
That's what drives everything. What happens when you go with your girlfriend, okay, and you go to meet her parents. What's the first thing the father asks? What do you do for a living?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
can you take care of my daughter?
The most important thing, because I want my daughter. Exactly. I want to make sure you can take care of my daughter, and I want her to be taken care of better than I was taken care of when I was growing up.
Right.
I want her to have a better life, and that means you have to have a good job. Now, I'm not saying having a good job is a bad thing. I'm not speaking out against that. But the value system that what I'm looking for is you have money or position or power. Okay. What we need to do, all of us, those of us who can see, those of us who can think, we need to change the fundamental value systems of society. Truth, justice, liberty, honor, integrity. You know, at the end of I do a weekly conference call. At the end of the show, I always say, okay, that at the end of the day, would you be proud to tell your friends, family, loved ones, children what you did today? Did you tell the truth? Did you keep your word? Did you honor your agreements? And if not, correct any trespass on your brother or sister and do it now. Don't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is too late. What I'm doing is I'm planting seeds of a different value system. Money, position, and power are fine in their proper place, but not when they're more important than anything else, because then you will do anything for money, position, and power. You will lie, you will cheat, you will steal, etc.
Well, look at look at the purported federal government today. I mean, what is every single one of those people there for? Money, power, and position. Every single one. I mean, we talked about this before you joined that the news, and I'm sure you've seen this already, Brent, that Senator Dianne Feinstein passed away. She was 90 freaking years old. Why in the world is she still in the Senate at 90 years old? I said this to Justice and Erica when we were talking before you joined us. I said she should have been spending the last 10 years with her family. She shouldn't have been doing it. But why did people do the things they do? For money, for power, and for position. I will just... I do want to just, if it's okay, I want to piggyback on a couple things you said, Brent. First of all, I've told everyone I'm a big fan. I've got, let me back this up a little
closer.
Right there. Dang it! I always forget that. There it is. I got his book. So for those
pieces of it are there. The background is overriding.
Yeah, I got to stand up and get my back. There it is. Okay. So I've had Brent's book now, the American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation. This is a great book, people. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And I recommend every one of you go to Brent's website and order the book, because there's so much you're going to learn from this. There's a few things that I want to piggyback on, and I hope this is okay, because a lot of people are just now coming to this realization that you have known for how many years now? 30-something years?
30.
Yeah. So a lot of people
30 plus years.
Yeah. So a lot of people are just coming to this realization. And so now what we have to learn to do is we have to learn how do we unravel this mess that has been created, because we have been led to believe that we must do these things. You must register your car. You must pay property taxes. You must pay income taxes. You must do all of these things. This must. And so a lot of people are struggling with the how-to. I'm not going to go. We don't have enough time here today to go through all the how-tos. Brent's book is a great place to start. I'm pointing over my shoulder because I just put it on my desk right here. Brent's book is a great place to start. We put out as much information as we can. Now, in my case, right? So in the home that I live in now, I bought this home back in 2016. I wasn't educated then like I am now. So now I'm learning, and I'm looking at all of these things and go, okay, just because I granted the government the privilege of sending me a tax doesn't mean I'm obligated to pay that. And I'll prove that. Okay. I have in front of me, with my little mouse, a Supreme Court case from 2001. This isn't very old. So 22 years ago. This is the Supreme Court case of Palazzolo, P-A-L-A-Z-Z-O-L-O versus Rhode Island. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that municipalities, counties, and states can exert no acts of ownership or control over property that is not owned by them. What does that mean? That means they cannot do anything like sell your property out from underneath of you because you didn't pay property taxes without ownership in the property. And I have another way to prove this to you. back in 2000, when was this? 2006, 2007, I want to say. There was a gentleman who lived in central part of Florida who fell on some hard times, back during the financial crisis of 08. And he wasn't able to make property tax payments. So what do you guys think, Erica? What did the county do?
Tried to sell his house to pay off the debt?
They didn't try. They did. They sold his house, and they sent the sheriff to kick him out of his property. He was homeless for about 4 years until along came a guy that some of you guys have known. You've heard me talk about him. His name is Steve Emerson. If you have questions, go look. He came around and said, whoa, wait a second. They did what now? Steve got together with this guy. He went back up. They wrote up a lawsuit. They served a lawsuit on the county, and the county came back and issued, rather than doing the whole song and dance like we see today with motions to dismiss and all this other garbage, they came back and said, we're just going to go ahead and just go straight to settlement. So they went to a settlement conference. The county tried to offer him what they sold the property for, which was $400,000. They said, go pound sand. You made me homeless for 4 years. We're not going to accept that. We can get a lot more than that when we take this to trial. They eventually settled for $38.6 million. That was the number that they settled for. Now, again, I'm bringing up a point, and the point that I'm bringing up is every single one of us is our own king or queen. And that's what Brent is saying. You are your own, you are in control of you, and you decide how you want your life to be lived. So if you choose to do certain things, just know there's consequences from that. If you choose to go take out a mortgage because you want the house, in my case and my wife's, I'm not an idiot. A happy wife is a happy life. I'm keeping her happy as long as I can, dang it. Okay? But I also know, because of my legal endeavors I'm in now, I'm going to have the cash to pay for the house, and I will. I believe that 100%. So I'm not concerned about what happens in the future. But if you choose to go take out a mortgage, then you're choosing to agree to the terms of the contract, where in their case, they say you need to go get title insurance. You need to have a title report done. We need to make sure that nobody can come in and steal this property from you because we have collateral in this property. That's exactly what this all comes down to. So if you're choosing to go that route, just know there's extra things you're going to have to do, because they're going to try and register the property with the county. They're going to start sending you property tax notices. I mean, this is how asinine this is, people. If you just quit paying your property taxes and you have a mortgage on your property, your mortgage company will pay the property taxes because they think that the county can just go ahead and sell your house out from underneath of you. I just read a Supreme Court case that says they can't. But do they know that? No, because they're not educated and they're not smart enough to figure that out. Sorry, Brent, go ahead. Back to you.
So, yeah, please. First, I would be happy at some future date to set up a time. I'll come on with you guys, and we could spend all the time talking about property tax.
Yeah.
And do that, because I know that's a hot spot for a lot of people. Okay?
Yes, it is.
However, there are a few points I really want to make here. My favorite founding father is Thomas Paine. I love Thomas Jefferson, Ben
the author
Franklin,
of Common Sense,
Patrick Henry, all that. Yes. Thomas Paine authored something called Common Sense. It was an essay that back then in the 18th century, everybody read it. A lot of people, thought he was crazy, but everybody read it. And if you can get it, you can get a copy of it and read it. It's brilliant. In it, he says of government, government at its very best is a necessary evil. Now, most people, when they read that, they read government is necessary. When I read that, I read government is fundamentally evil. That is its nature.
Exactly.
Government
That's what I agree.
is evil. Government is not your friend. Okay. Ronald Reagan said that, one of the most frightening things that anybody can say to you is that I'm from the government. I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
Okay?
You should run if that happens.
Government is never here to help you because government is evil.
Yes.
When you support government, you are supporting evil. Now, understand that everybody who works for the government, the entire staff of government, whether it be elected or appointed officials, they are all criminals. Now, I want you to grasp this. This is, again, not metaphorical. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Constitution itself is what's called a document of negative authority, meaning if the Constitution does not specifically authorize the government to do a certain thing, it is prohibited from doing that thing. Okay.
Correct.
The Constitution is a limitation on government. Read your Bill of Rights. Okay.
Yes.
Congress shall have no power to fill in the blank. Okay. It's an instruction to government. But the people who work for government regularly and consistently disobey the Constitution. That means they are breaking the supreme law of the land, which means they're breaking the law. They're criminals.
They're criminals.
So I want you to grasp that, because it's so important to understanding what's happening. You go into court, you do this, you do that, and you lose. But you've got all your affidavits, and you've got all your documents, and you've got all your Supreme Court rulings, and you still lose.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because showing the law to a criminal does nothing. I invite you to try this. Go find a bank robber who's robbing a bank and walk up to him and say, "Hey, buddy, did you know that bank robbery is illegal?"
Exactly.
And you can go to jail for a long time. Now, do you expect him to say, "Oh, thank you so much, I appreciate it," and go home? No, never happen. He'll probably shoot you, and he'll still rob the bank, because the law does not protect you from criminals. Look at all the gun control garbage. The arguments against gun control are that just because you make a law, the criminals will get the guns anyway. Of course, because criminals don't obey the law. This is, by the way, the reason why I do not personally use or promote commercial law strategy. The American National Movement used to be called the Redemption Process. It's been around for 30 some odd years. And the people who put it together are brilliant in understanding the letter of the law. It's irrelevant. The law will not protect you from criminals. This is why you need to claim your sovereignty. It's the only way that you are going to be successful in living free. You will not be successful by petitioning the government, by going to the courts, by filing the affidavit. It's all good. It's all fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But you're dealing with criminals. And you're not going to get satisfaction from criminals because they're criminals. The other thing I just wanted to briefly touch on, and I do not want to go back into property tax right now, but I do want to say the tax itself is not a tax on property. In the Constitution, it said not once but twice, there shall be no direct taxation without apportionment. Apportionment is a process that's never been properly done. We can put that aside for now. When I come back and talk about property tax, we'll talk about that. But the point is, if the tax was a tax on property, it would have long ago been found unconstitutional. It is not. Okay, it is a tax on utilizing government services voluntarily. The value of the property is used to determine the amount of the tax. It's not a tax on
falls under the excise tax. That's what everybody. So anybody who goes to court and incorrectly argues it's unconstitutional, no, because the courts can come back and say no, it's constitutional because it falls under the excise. Correct.
But they won't let you believe that. They'll have you thinking it's. They have you thinking.
Of course they will.
Right. Yeah.
Of course they will. And what do most people do? They ask their attorneys. There is a body. There is a body of law called Corpus Juris Secundum, or CJS for short. And in it, I think it's volume 4, section 7, but I'm not sure. I don't want you to quote me on that. But in it, there is a provision, a section that defines the duties of an attorney. And there are 3 primary duties of an attorney. The first is as an officer of the court. The first duty of the attorney is to the court.
Yes,
the second duty of the attorney is to the Bar Association, the British Accredited Registry. The third duty of the attorney is to the client. So if the attorney ever has a conflict between what the bar wants or the court wants and what the client wants, who loses?
Client's number 3. They're going to lose
every
That's
time.
right. Every time.
You weren't on when I was just hounding. Listen, you're gonna get no love from me for attorneys. I affectionately call them liars, capital LIE, lowercase YERS. So you're going to get no argument from me about going and retaining a lawyer or anything like that. So
there are uses for attorneys. Again, as a sovereign, use the tools available to you. Sometimes attorneys can be useful. What attorneys are good at is understanding corporate legal procedure.
Correct.
If you have some reason for wanting to do something that requires you to navigate corporate legal procedure, attorneys can be very helpful.
Yeah.
But I would always interview an attorney before hiring one. I would always interview an attorney to determine what kind of character the attorney has.
Yes.
I gave a seminar back in Virginia Beach, Virginia, some 25 years ago. And there was a gentleman there who was sitting in the front row taking copious notes. And he became a very good friend of mine. At the time, he worked for the Virginia Attorney General's office. He was an attorney, and he worked for the AG's office. Now, in public life, that's about as high as you can get as an attorney, until you are elected into something. But so he had a real good job, made a lot of good money, and he spent all this time taking these copious notes. When he was finished, he researched to find out if anything I was teaching was true. He found that it was all true. He quit his job with the AG office, went into private practice, trying to help people to learn the truth about things. And today he's a county council member in, I think it's Illinois. And he and I talk regularly, and he's brilliant, and I would trust him implicitly. And yes, he's an attorney. Okay, he's helped me many times over legal issues, and so, like I say, there are exceptions to the rule. Is my real point there. But attorneys do have positive elements, particularly about what they're trained to do, which is procedure.
Yeah. And that's
always losses.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Okay.
Real quick, Erica. That's an important distinction I make all the time. When I say attorneys and I affectionately refer to them as liars, they're not all being cast into this big net, and because there are, just like Brent said, there are some fabulous people who are actually doing the right thing for the right reasons. I'm not saying that. I'm just like, again, I happen to pick up on things pretty quickly, the law being one of those, which is why I choose to litigate my own cases. I don't need to spend money. I don't need to throw money at somebody to go argue my cases for me, because I can do it myself. And oftentimes I can run circles around these attorneys, which I've been doing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we have all been dumbed down to believe you have a legal problem. Oh, you have to get an attorney. That's the only way you can get recourse, is by getting an attorney. So, all right. Sorry, Erica, go ahead.
So that's what I was getting ready to say. Like, this channel is attracting a certain group of people who are trying to be pro se in cases that they have found themselves in for whatever reason. They're trying to figure out, what do I do? What's my recourse? How do I fix this? Now, I know, Brent, you do a lot of assistance with legal service type stuff, but for the people who come here looking for help to do it themselves, what do you have to say to them if they're dealing with criminals?
Well, in the first place, the court system itself is designed to be intimidating. My administrative director, Lee Parker, many, many, many years ago, she had gotten a ticket. She carries an international driver's permit. She got a ticket for no license, and she was going to go take it into court. Now, she is my right hand. She is completely exposed to the kind of things that I teach. Okay, she doesn't grasp them as well as I do, but she has a very good understanding. She had, in the living room of her house, for 6 months, she would have legal papers on the floor. She was reading up on things, training herself as to how to do things. We would role play. I would play the judge, and she would, be in court, and we would do role playing and everything, just to rehearse her to the point that she'd know how to conduct herself, and she'd just be able to do it without thinking. So finally, the court case date comes. She goes into court, and she forgets everything. Everything. She was completely She was completely intimidated by the environment of the court. This guy in black robe up on top and everything, looking down on you. I mean, the whole thing. It's designed to do that. Mm-hmm. It is intended to do that. So the first thing I would say, Erica, is you don't go pro se. You go pro per. Just so you know, there is a difference. Pro se means I am representing myself. Pro per, which actually stands for propria persona, is I am standing in my own self. I am myself. I'm not representing myself. I am me. So the proper way to do it is pro per. The key to understanding courts, and it's very, very difficult. I don't go to court. Okay, I seldom, if ever, go to court. Okay, because I don't want to go to court. But the key to understanding how to be successful in a court matter is to understand what's important to the court. Now, the judge is trained, and keep in mind, all these people are bureaucrats. I wrote an article. If you go to my website, look under articles by Brent Johnson, you'll find it's called The Bureaucratic Profile. I had a guy who printed it out, and he used to bring it over to 7-Elevens and hand it out to people and say, if you like it, give me $1. And he would take the $1, he would send it to me as a donation. I never asked him to do this, but he did it. Nice. One time he told me he'd gone into a 7-Eleven. He gave out 7 of these. Okay, there were 7 people there. One of them walked out. The other 6 loved it. The clerk said about the guy who walked out, yeah, he's a bureaucrat. Bureaucrats are the product of their training, no more and no less. Now, it's important to know, no more and no less. You can predict what a bureaucrat will do 100% of the time, and that gives you a strategic advantage. I tell people all the time, do not fight your battles in the legal venue. Fight them in the psychological venue, because you are so much smarter than those who would subject you to their will. So if you go into court, you have to understand the nature of the court. Number one nature of the court is the judge is trained that he is king in his court. He can do whatever he wants to do. Doesn't matter what the law says. He can do what he wants. And the judge values that. That's really important to the judge. If you, by your actions in that courtroom, let the judge know that by pursuing you, he's going to lose control over his court, he wants you out of his court. He just wants you gone. And there are numerous ways to make that happen. You don't do it overtly. You don't sit there and threaten the judge. If you don't do this properly, I'm going to go after your bond, and I'm going to go after this. And you don't do that, because all the people in the public part of the courtroom hear that. Now the judge knows what you're going to do. He's got to defend his court. He's got to do something. So no matter what it is, he's going to do something to shut you down. That's not how you do it. What you do is you say things in such a way that the judge knows that you know the nature of the court. Now, he doesn't want the people in the public part of the courtroom to ever know the nature of the court. So your presence in his courtroom threatens him. And if you don't do anything overt, he's going to find a way to get you out of his courtroom. Frequently, it'll just be, I'm going to dismiss this. Yeah. But you don't fight him on the legal grounds. If you do that, you will always lose, because he's a criminal. The law doesn't impress him. I used to do a skit in my seminars. It was one of many skits. This particular one was about how to intimidate a judge, and I'll just tell you how it went. Yeah. Okay. So the court calls John Smith. Okay. Charge is driving without a license. Mr. Smith, how do you plead? I plead null TL record. Now, let me tell you what I just said. It's 3 words. It's null, N-U-L, T-L, T-I-E-L, record. It is a legitimate plea. If you look it up in American jurisprudence, you will find it there. And it means no such record. Okay, so I plead null TL record. Now, the judge is going to say, I'm sorry, you cannot enter that plea in this courtroom. You can only enter guilty or not guilty or no contest. I plead null TL record. Mr. Smith, I just told you that you can only enter a plea of guilty, not guilty, or no contest. I heard what you said, Judge. My plea is null TL record. Now, you keep this up, the judge is going to do the following. What you're doing right now is manipulating the judge, by the way. The judge will finally say, very well, Mr. Smith, I'm going to enter a plea of not guilty for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, I have one other question, please. Can you please tell me, by entering a plea of not guilty, are you practicing law from the bench or are you rendering a judicial determination?
Yep.
The judge's response will always be the same. What?
Exactly. Yeah, the law says I can do this.
well, Judge, I just want to, I need to understand what's going on here. I need to comprehend this so I can best participate in this proceeding. Now, you've just entered a plea of not guilty for me, and I hear that. I just want to know whether your entry of the plea is practicing law from the bench or rendering a judicial determination. And the point, again, is you stay on point. No matter what the judge says, John Smith comes back and continues to ask the question. And remember, people in the public part of the courtroom are all hearing this. They don't understand it, but they're hearing it. And the judge knows they're hearing it. And the judge knows what you've just done, because no judge in the world will ever admit on the bench to practicing law from the bench. If he does, he will be thrown off the bench, probably disbarred, and the case will be thrown out. Absolutely. And if that happens, all the people in the public part of the courtroom will know what's happened, and the judge will lose control over his courtroom, which matters to him. So the judge will ultimately respond, I'm rendering a judicial determination. Thank you very much, Judge. Now, what has just happened is the judge has rendered a judicial determination that I am not guilty. The court case is done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, because the judge answered it that way, John Smith wasn't, harassed in any way, except for having to go to court. Okay, but nobody in the public part of the courtroom, or few, would grasp it. So the judge can continue to exercise control over his courtroom. That's how you intimidate a judge. And that's just one technique. There are people who've gone into court and who refuse to cross the bar, who refuse to acknowledge their name in all caps. And if they do it correctly, the judge throws it out. But the real answer to your question, Erica, is don't get into the courtroom, because it's in so many ways intimidating. I can talk to you about this. I can give you that script there, but the moment you walk in, you forget it all.
Yes,
because you're so intimidated.
Brent, what I have already done, I've already written up my non-statutory abatement with all of my marks, everything. It's already ready. So in the event that I get, invited to come to one of their kangaroo courts, I've already got a sweet little letter ready to send to them that declines their offer to do so. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And for those who are not familiar with it, she's talking, it's in the appendix section. It's a sample of what's called a non-statutory abatement. If you have, for example, an international driver's permit, not a state-issued driver's license, and you get a ticket for no license, this is what you do. You send them a non-statutory abatement. It goes to the cop who gave you the ticket. And in essence, what it's doing is it is saying, here, officer, I'm giving you back your process. It is flawed. There are certain things wrong with it. If you will correct these and return it to me, then I will take a look at it.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
the cop doesn't know anything. He knows what he's trained to do. That's all he knows.
Exactly.
So the cop doesn't know anything. He's not going to do anything like that. But it's a valid process because you're not a state-issued licensee. The moment you got that state-issued license, you set a different standard for yourself. You voluntarily agree to waive your rights in favor of the privilege of driving, and now you have to obey the rules and regulations governing that privilege.
Yeah, I've heard so many times. You guys have probably seen this too, where you get pulled over and you'll see the officer will say, "Well, driving is a privilege." Probably, but you know what? I have a God-given right to travel. So again, that's an argument for another day. But at the end of the day, what Brent's saying here is again, it's like if you agree to the privilege of this, then the presumption is that you agree to be processed in an administrative court. So when you walk into one of these kangaroo courts, you've got a judge in a black robe, and it has the appearance of a court of law, but it is not an Article 3 court of law. It is an administrative court that is there operating according to, wait for it, the Administrative Procedures Act. Every state has one. There's a Federal Administrative Procedures Act. And when what Brent just said is it's genius, because you're calling them out on it. You're like, hold on a second. When I read the Administrative Procedures Act, and when I look at the legislative intent of that act, it says nothing that the state is to have any power over me, one of the sovereign people whatsoever. So what am I doing here? Why are you trying to haul me into this administrative court? There are some serious issues here.
And this when it becomes important to have it on file somewhere that you are one of the sovereign people, right? So that you can, like, there's a whole process for it.
It's whether it's it's on file or not is irrelevant.
Wait.
Yeah,
that's correct. That's correct. The issue is when you're dealing with civil law, and just about everything we're talking about is actually civil law. When you're dealing with civil law, it's the law of presumption. So if I send you a letter, it says you owe me $1 million. I have just created a presumption that you owe me $1 million.
Yeah.
If you ignore that, in 30 days, I can go and collect on it because by your silence, you've consented and the presumption stands. Now, the way you deal with the presumption is you literally hit the ball back over the net. You countered the presumption. You send me a letter that says, I don't owe you $1 million. Now, your presumption trumps mine. Mm-hmm. And now if I want to pursue it, I have to show evidence to back up my assertion because you have challenged me. But if you don't challenge me, my assertion remains. So you are sovereign, not because I said so, but because you were endowed by your creator. You are sovereign. That's the foundation. Now, when you get a driver's license, you create a new presumption, and that is that you have voluntarily, knowingly waived your sovereign rights in favor of the privilege of driving. Okay, now that's the new presumption in your life. Now, you can cancel that license. Okay, you can remove that presumption. Okay, but until you do, that's the presumption, and that's what stands. You walk into that courtroom, that's the presumption they work with. Unless you've done something. So you don't initially have to say, well, I have to file a document that says that I'm sovereign. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again,
but if you have waived your rights, then, you need to do something to trump the presumption of the waiver of rights. Sorry about that, James. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely fine.
James, you're frozen. Your image is frozen.
I don't know what's going on with my computer. I'm having some issues with that. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm actually going to have to drop off here. I'm going to have to drop off here for a second. So, or actually not for a second. I'm going to have to drop off. I've got a work call I've got to be on, but Justice and Erica can handle, and you're in good hands, Brent. But one thing I wanted to make is this: when you come into court or anywhere, and you stand on your principles, and you're saying, I am swearing under the penalty of perjury, this is the truth. Someone's got to come in there and rebut it. And this is why I always say Dr. Graves' course, How to Win in Court, is a great place. You know, Brent's right. He's like, if you can avoid court, avoid court. I don't care. I relish it. I love it because I love throwing the crap right back into attorneys' faces. It's fun for me. I enjoy it, but some people don't. And that's okay. You know, and Justice knows firsthand she had to go into a court and it's just like you said, Brent, it's like the deer in the headlights took over like, crap, what am I supposed to do?
It was a virtual hearing and
Yeah.
James was going to help me and they forbid him to help me.
Yeah.
And even though he had power of attorney or whatever, and I was frozen, had no idea what to say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's an absolutely intimidating environment, but at the end of the day, what wins is admissible evidence. And I'm just going to give you a key with this real quick. And then I gotta jump off because I've got to get to my work call here. So, so what happened is I've got a good friend of mine, as most of you know, Brandon, the Big Sib. He's fighting. He's actually suing the Chief Justice of the Louisiana Middle District Federal Court. He's suing her because she issued a arbitrary directive that every individual that walked into the courthouse had to put on something to restrict their breathing. And so it has now made its way to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The opposition asked the court for an extension of time to file their reply brief. The court, in no uncertain terms, came back and said, suck it up, Buttercup, file a reply brief by this Friday, next Friday.
Oh, that's good.
So there is some good news. Not only that, there are some good foundational rulings coming from these adults in the room. And it's just like we've said before. I mean, Brent's not wrong. Most of your state courts, these guys, they only know processes. They don't know Constitution. They don't know God-given rights. They don't. And if you call them out on it, it's just like you said, this is like just telling, well, hey, let's go mandate that nobody can own a gun that has a capacity magazine of this. Okay, who's going to follow that law? Law-abiding citizens. That's it. Right. Criminals are going to do what criminals do.
Yeah.
And that's the absolute truth of that nature. But the good news, like I said, we are seeing good rulings coming at the appellate level in certain states, but in certain instances, excuse me. So this is why I choose to fight the battles that I'm choosing. I don't have to fight these battles. I could absolutely just live my own life and just be free of it. But I'm doing this because I'm sick and tired of this tyranny. I'm sick and tired of people telling me they have authority and control over me when they don't. So with that, you guys, I got to jump off. But Brent, thank you so much for joining. You're in good hands with Justice and Erica. And then let's sync up again. I want to do another episode with you if we can, but I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And this time we'll make sure our time zones are true to each other.
No problem. Thanks. Take care, everybody. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
All right. Bless you.
You know, again, not to be a wet blanket, but the issue is not just the law. And I understand he enjoys going into courts and all that. However, okay, in the end, what's happening is, and it's every time, what are you going to do about it? Right. So you go into court, and the court, we've even seen it. The Supreme Court issues a ruling. New York State ignores the ruling because they don't like it. And there's always the unasked question. What are you going to do about it? Right. And until that question is answered loudly, okay, until that happens, there will be no fixing any of this. It won't come from a ruling because a criminal state will just say, I'm going to do it anyway. Look at what, what's her name, Grisham in New Mexico just did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look at, well, it's an emergency situation. Well, who gives you the idea that you can declare an emergency and then rule the people?
Criminals.
And every time they do it, they're saying, again, what are you going to do about it? So it comes back down to, if you grasp that you are the king, you are the queen of your life, there is nobody who rules over you. There is nobody with more power than you.
Right. But so, you know, when they come with guns and take you and put you in jail, is the fear tactic that is what manipulates people to remain in the system and kowtowing to their orders.
Right. However, I will tell you this. Okay, I once fell off a cliff in Maui.
Ooh.
And it was about 35 feet. and I was with a bunch of people. We were walking up down in the area called the Sacred Pools of Hana in southern part of Maui, and we were walking up towards Rainbow Falls, beautiful place. And there were a number of pathways along the route, and 3 of us broke off from the group and walked down one of those pathways, and we came to a lake area with a beautiful waterfall and Tarzan vine type trees, like the roots of trees hanging down like Tarzan vines. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so my friends went into the water and they were hanging out there, and I looked and I saw that behind the waterfall was a cave. And I looked and said, wow, if I can get into that cave and look out from inside, that would be amazing. So I looked and I saw that, well, now this is not a tourist area. This is not like you have a path to follow to get to the cave. In order to get up there, I would have to climb up the cliff face, and then I would have to walk along the wet rock and get into the cave. But I decided I'm going to do it. So I climbed up the cliff face and get to the top. And at the time, I didn't know how wet it was. In order to walk on the rock at the top of the cliff, I had to wedge my foot between 2 rocks and then move my next foot out and wedge it between 2 rocks, because the rocks themselves were like ice. There was so much moisture on them that if I didn't do that, I would just slip and I would fall. So I did that. It took me a while, and I got to a place where I could see that if I can just make one more step, I will get onto dry rock and I'll be able to walk over to the cave. No problem. So then I looked around and I saw there was no place to wedge my front foot without removing my rear foot. In other words, there wasn't a place. I looked, I couldn't find it. So I wasn't going to be able to wedge my front foot before I removed my rear foot. And what I was going to essentially have to do is leap. So at this point, I reconsidered the whole thing. And so maybe I should just go back and all that, and said, no, that would probably be more dangerous. So I said, okay, I'm going to go forward. Okay. And I prayed on it. And then I went into myself spiritually, and I made my body as light as I could possibly make it. And then I took the leap. Now, again, I had to leap. I had to remove my rear foot before I put my front foot down. That was the only way to do it. And I did it, and my front foot went right out from under me like ice. And in that moment, I knew I was going to fall. Now, I did not know if I was going to hit water or rock. As I was falling, I saw an outcropping of rock on the side of the cliff. And with all my might, I pushed off with my hands on that outcropping to try and get myself far enough out that I would fall on water and not get killed. In the meantime, my friends had seen what I was doing, and they were watching this. Needless to say, I survived. Okay, I hit water. I didn't hit rock. It turns out where I had pressed off on the outcropping of rock was the nerve pack on my palm, and my shoulder went numb, and I couldn't even pick up a hair for months. Okay, I couldn't play the guitar or anything at all. I was seriously injured from that. But let me tell you, 2 things I learned. Number 1, I never regretted it for a moment, because I had thought about it, I had considered it, and I'd made the decision to go forward, and I was willing to take the consequences of my decision. It was the most exciting thing ever happened to me in my life. The second thing I learned is that from the moment I knew I was falling, there was no fear, none at all. All the fear took place before I took that final step. And what I came to grasp was that fear is an illusion. Whatever you're afraid of, it hasn't happened. Because when it happens, you deal with it. You do what you need to do. So your fear comes in because of what might happen. I'm afraid to go to court because what might happen. I'm afraid to take the step because what might happen. Okay. So the fear itself is of something that has not occurred yet. So
but they know that, and their psychological behavior creates that for you.
yes, indeed. But the important point here is if you embrace your sovereignty, I am the ruler of my life. If you embrace that, you will have no fear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you're standing on top of a cliff and it's 100-foot drop and everything, you might have a moment of fear that teaches you to step, don't step too close to the edge. That's a healthy fear. That's a fear that lets you know if you do something, you could hurt yourself. But in most situations, if you embrace your sovereignty, really and truly, you will not be afraid, because you have no need to be afraid, because nobody has power over you. Nobody at all. Now, you do have to accept the consequences of your actions. You do have to completely accept that. You can no longer say, well, it's the fault of the government. Well, something bad happens, it's the fault of the guy told me, Brent Johnson told me to do this, it's his fault.
Right.
Yeah, you can no longer do that. You give that up when you embrace your sovereignty. However, when you do embrace your sovereignty, you take actual control, and you will find that the fear goes away. Most people, they live in that fear because they do not embrace their sovereignty.
That's the one thing I've
they're
noticed about all my friends who are in the state national movement and going through that process. They always keep having this idea, I'll be free once I finish doing this next thing, or I'll be free once this next step is taken and I can check that off my list. See, that's where the difference is. I have always felt free. And the more I go through this process of shedding what illusion of regulation they have over me, the more free I feel and the more exciting it is. And that's what I love about Brent and Freedom Bound International, as I have worked with them on a number of things, the practical things. And that's the kind of stuff that you guys are asking questions about in the comment section. Like, how do you have a bank account, Brent? How do you do this? How do you drive? How do you do? And that's the kind of stuff that you find such enjoyment on teaching us what all those workarounds are. But you got to have a person who's already coming to you, who's like, I am already sovereign. I am free. You'll help with the details. And then we can
exactly.
help.
Exactly. Exactly. I can give you the details. I cannot there is no step-by-step how to do this.
No.
Okay. If you have not embraced yourself as king, as queen of your life, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Absolutely nothing I can do to help you. If you have, yeah, I can show you techniques here and there. I don't drive. I travel. Okay. I do not have a vehicle registered to me, and I do not have a driver's license. I carry an international driver's permit. Now, I don't need to carry anything, but because I'm dealing with criminals,
yes,
with a badge,
yes,
okay, my objective is to be left alone.
Right.
So I will, for example, take a vehicle, put it into a common law trust, have it titled and registered in the name of that trust, and leased back to me. So now if I'm pulled over, they can't give me a ticket for a registration infraction because I'm not the registered owner. I don't have their license. I have an IDP, an international driver's permit. It's under international law. Now, if they ask me, why do you have it? I tell them that, I'm a member of the press. They go away.
Yes.
And by the way, we even, because I am an international broadcast personality, my company is a media company, I can actually issue bona fide press credentials. So you get an international driver's permit, you get press credentials, and now if they pull you over and they ask you, why do you have this international driver's permit? That's what you tell them. You don't need the press credentials, but you do need a story. You need to tell them something. You don't get intimidated by them. That's what happens. People don't know what to say. Tell me what to say. No, it's not for me to tell you. You are the king. You are the queen. You determine what to say. But you should understand the environment. You're pulled over. He's a criminal. You go out and tell him the law, it's not going to do you any good. But if you play the psychological, if he's sitting there, he sees that the vehicle is registered, so he can't give me a ticket for not having a license plate. He sees that I have a document. It's international. It's not, his state issued license, but it is a document. There's a psychological component to that.
Right. It's using their stuff back against them.
In essence, yes. In essence, yes. And if you do that, the cop, again, what does the cop want? The cop wants to make money.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he can't give me a ticket because I don't have his license. Okay. And he can't, give me a ticket about registration because I'm not the registered owner. And as long as I'm not doing something belligerent, he's better off just getting rid of me because time is money. If he decides to arrest me for some reason, that's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
That's a lot of paperwork. He would rather get somebody he could ticket because then he's making money. Okay. That's the psychology of it. So Lee was pulled over in Harris County, Texas once. Now, Harris County is atrocious. And the sheriff in Harris County is a hangman sheriff. He's notorious. He always gives a ticket. Always. And she got pulled over by the sheriff in Harris County. He gave her a warning. Moved her on.
Why now?
Okay. She was in a vehicle not registered to her, and she had an international driver's permit. And she was a 70-some-odd-year-old lady, and she was very, very respectful to him. And, time is money.
So here's something that Brent told me, okay? Because I have a warrior spirit, right? In my spirit, if someone pulls me over, if I know I can't just talk my way out of it, which I usually can because everyone knows me and I have a delightful, whatever. But if it got to bones, I will have it in my spirit to just exert my freedom, right? But Brent reminded me, we're in a war zone. Like, we're in a war, and we have to have the weapons of our warfare. And it's things like the international driver's permit. It's things like having our properties protected by a common law lien that freezes the title. It's about being able to access bank accounts through your private LLC, and these are all things that Brent does with Freedom Bound International. 100% success record too. And his face is all over everything. He shows up like he's not skulking away behind an anonymous way, and he can't hide anywhere. He's everywhere every week, all the time. And he's helping people all around, just trying to get the practical steps to be able to make the government irrelevant so that we can just be free and kind of blend in.
So share with the viewers what Freedom Bound International is, and then where they can get a hold of it. I'm assuming on the website and so forth. And then Brent, we have a couple questions if you would.
Absolutely. So just briefly, Freedom Bound International is itself a common law pure trust organization.
And where do they find that?
And the website is www.freedomradio.us. Freedomradio.us. Our phone number, it's toll free, is 888-385-FREE. 888-385-3733. And, my book basically says it all. The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation. That's your birthright. That's your birthright. If you're willing to give up the perks that come with waiving your rights. There's a lot of encouragement. Waive your rights. You can own things that you can't afford. You can do things that you otherwise would not be able to do. You can have things be very convenient for you. But understand, with convenience comes a loss of privacy. I consider privacy more important than convenience. That's why I'm willing to endure less circumstances.
Right.
If you have the character to live as a sovereign, I can help you for sure. And you said you had a couple of questions out there.
Yep. There's about 5 questions here. And so you can just, briefly run through them.
Give it
Okay. You graciously said you'd come back. So folks,
yes,
keep that in the queue because we've been on for 2 hours and 20 minutes. We'll have Brent back, and he graciously said he'd love to do it. So just maybe we'll do a Q&A session completely at one time. So first question is, are you able to have a bank account? If so, how did you go about that?
Oh, sure. I've had banking for 30 plus years with no problem. Now, as it happens, okay, my bank account is in what's called a corporation sole, SOLE. It is a legal juridical device designed to provide the same liability protections that a corporation provides, but it is not subject to corporate administrative government regulation. Unfortunately, back in the mid '90s, some idiot, not a protege of mine, but some idiot used a corporation sole to do something bad. I don't know what. And all the Bank of America Pacific Northwest executives met and decided they would not offer bank accounts for corporation sole anymore. And then all the other banks followed suit. Now, I don't know if there's ever been a change to that policy, but I no longer recommend using the corporation sole for that reason. But mine was grandfathered in, and so it's still fine. But what I do suggest people do is we offer something, we call it a stealth LLC. It's a limited liability company out of South Dakota. South Dakota has the best privacy protections. The name of the owner, member, manager is not in the public record, and the EIN that comes with the LLC is not connected to your social. Using that, you can then open up banking with the LLC. Now, you have to understand, if you're going to be the signatory on the account, you will have to provide your social, because the bank's policy will not allow them to open up the account without that. Now, that doesn't mean they can't. They can. And if you want to, enjoin that particular battle, you can do that. But if you do have a Social Security number, then the simplest way is just, to use that when you open up the account as with you as the signatory. Understand, nobody knows you have an LLC unless you tell them, because it is private. So that's how I would address that in brief. Go ahead.
Okay. And all the details and the way to connect to Brent is what we're showing on his website and his phone number. The next question is where do you cash money orders without a relationship with the bank?
Well, it depends on the money order. If it's a postal money order, take it to the post office.
Okay.
If it's a Walmart money order, take it to Walmart. If it's a bank money order, take it to that particular bank. And of course, you could always cash things at a check cashing place, but they take a chunk out of it,
right?
As their fee.
Right. Okay. Okay. 3 more questions. We've got, how do we get recourse when corrupt judges are in the way?
That's not a simple question. Okay. And, it's a problem because the system is a criminal system. The system is not functioning properly. Right. Now, there are some things that you can do. For example, the first thing I would do is go after the oath of office. Go after the oath of office, and more often than not, you'll find there's an irregularity with the oath of office. Then you go after the bond. Everyone who works for government, appointed or elected, has a bond, a liability bond. If they lose the bond, they lose their job.
Okay, great. Love to hear more details about that. Next question is Joseph Smith. Civil law is private, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by private, so I'm not sure how to answer that.
So Joseph, if you're still with us, go ahead and put that more in the comments, a little bit more detail, and we'll go to the last question.
Civil law, okay, civil law is one body of law in which you have individual parties versus other individual parties, as opposed to criminal law, where you have the state versus whatever parties. But as to whether or not it's private or not, I need to know about what you mean by private. Go ahead. Ask the other one.
Okay. The last question is question about the trust stuff. Aren't trusts creations of the state, still registering and getting their permissions, etc.?
Ooh, I know this one. This is a good one.
Okay, first off, a trust, legally speaking, is a right of property held by one party for the benefit of another party. You go to a fancy restaurant, give the keys to your car to the valet to park your car. That is a form of a trust. It's called an implied trust because it's not written down anywhere. If it's written down, it's called an express trust. But that valet has control of that vehicle. He can take it down into the parking lot and park it wherever he wants. Doesn't need to ask you or anything. He's got control over it. But his control is for your benefit. He cannot go riding up and down the boulevard to impress his friends because that would not be for your benefit. That is a trust. Now, a trust can be statutory, meaning it was created by an act of the legislature, in which case the legislature controls it and can make rules governing how to use it and change those rules whenever it wants. A trust can also be common law. Common law trust does not get its existence from any government agency, and the government and the statutory trusts have no authority over it. There are numerous Supreme Court rulings to this effect, by the way. The oldest known common law, called a pure trust, okay, in America, was set up by Patriot Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death, Patrick Henry. It was set up in the year 1790. It was called the North American Land Company, and it existed in some form until the 1990s when it finally shut down. So, no, a trust does not need to be registered. A trust does not need to be subjected to government controls. Okay, if it is a common law trust, it is outside of those controls. That's the kind of trust that we do.
And do you create that yourself? Like, you know how it's legal to create a will and sign it and put it in an envelope and it's considered legally a will?
No. I have seen things like that. No, a trust is the body of the trust is what's called an indenture. Mm-hmm. That is the trust contract. Okay, it requires multiple parties because an agreement cannot be made among one person. Okay. One person cannot make an agreement. Okay, an agreement requires more than one party. In the case of a common law pure trust, there are 4 principles. The first is called the exchanger. In a statutory trust, that would be called the grantor. In a common law trust, it's the exchanger. Mm-hmm. The second is called the creator. In a statutory trust, that would be called the settler. In a common law trust, it's the creator. The creator and the exchanger sign the trust contract, establishing the trust. Then the creator appoints what we call the fiduciary owner. It's the trustee. Okay. And there is a 4th principle, and the trustee manages and administers the assets of the trust for the holders of beneficial interest. And then the final party is called the protector. The protector protects the beneficial interest holders' interests to make sure that the fiduciary owner acts in their best interest. If he or she does not, the protector can fire the fiduciary owner, the trustee, and install a new one. Those are the main principles in a common law pure trust. But only 2 of them actually sign the initial trust contract. So no, it cannot be done with just one person.
Okay. So your interests, you have to reach out to Brent if that's something you'd like to do, and you will help them through it, right?
Yes. And I will tell you this. The first thing I recommend to people who come to me is I say the first thing you want to do is protect your property rights. Property comes first because ownership equals liability. It doesn't matter if you're the owner or a trust is a corporation. The principle is universal. Ownership equals liability. But if you own nothing, like me, you have no liability. If you have no liability, the criminals in government who wish to take what's yours and make it theirs will leave you alone because there's nothing you have they can take.
Right.
So the first step is to do that. If you take care of your property stuff and the IRS decides to come after you, they can't take the house because it's not your house. It belongs to the trust.
Right. Okay.
So When you take care of property issues, which I recommend you do first, then you're in a position to stand up for your liberty, because nothing they can take to go after you, because you don't have anything. I am a pauper. I own absolutely nothing, and I love it.
Right. It's great. This is great information. There's one more question. Should we do it?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. The last question is by Bill Crane, and he says, Brent, what is the date of the latest edition of your book?
Oh, well, the latest the latest printing was done just probably a couple of months ago. I don't think I have added anything substantial to the book since the probably 1998 to 2002, something like that. But I promise you this, everything that's in the book is timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Andrew and I use it as a textbook for him, and it's very, very well organized for the understanding of a young mind who's just learning this stuff. So as adults, since we're all just learning this stuff too, it just takes it so easy. Remember earlier when I was talking about how I went down every rabbit hole, I went down everything. And this book just does such a great job of citing the sources so that you can know that it's true. And it puts it into such an understandable format with very easy to digest chapters. So I highly recommend it for any age.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you. And that is my skill. My skill is being able to take complex issues and simplify them in such a way that anybody and everybody can grasp them. I'm not looking to tell you what to do. I'm looking for you to become somebody who can decide for yourself what to do. That's what I look to do. So I'm not out there trying to promote a particular dogma. I don't tell you that you should get rid of your social security number. I do tell you that if you really want to be completely free, you have your liberty, you must get rid of it. Okay. But I don't tell you should, because there are always consequences to any decision you make, and you need to embrace those consequences. You need to be willing to accept the consequences of your choices. When you do that, you become invulnerable, you become invincible, and you become the king or queen you were born to be.
That's fantastic. So one more time for those who are listening and not watching, would you state your website, how they can get in touch with you? And I know you do a radio show. What's your schedule?
Yes. Okay. I do a weekly conference call on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern time for about 2 hours. You can actually call and you can actually ask me questions and things like that during that. Now, I am a theater person, so ever since I started doing broadcasting, I've brought showmanship to it, so it's interesting. Same with my conference call. It's Tuesday evenings, 8 p.m. Easiest way to get the info is go to the website. It's all over there, exactly how to connect. The website is www.freedomradio.us. freedomradio.us. You can also find order forms, information about my books, about other books that we carry. Oh, yes, I found, yes, I just got a notice Dianne Feinstein is dead. Other books that we carry, DVDs and CDs, both of presentations I've made and of other materials that, some key individuals have done. There's a tremendous amount of good information. My seminar, my Freedom Seminar, which is a 10-hour 5 DVD presentation, that's available as well. Just check out the website. Look under products, look under services. You'll find about the Stealth LLC. You'll find about the Common Law Pure Trust, and you'll find about an international series of entities called the Private Interest Foundation, the International Business Corporation. You'll see in there where you can get the IDP, the International Driver's Permit, the press credentials, and various other things that we offer in support of you protecting your rights and protecting your freedoms. That's freedomradio.us, and come join me on the Tuesday night show. My phone number, 888-385-FREE. That's 888-385-FREE. 3733. Last time, 888-385-3733. Please give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And I am definitely available to help obtain whatever objectives you do have. I'm very happy to come back and visit with you. And if any of you out there are, have podcasts or broadcasts or whatever, and you would like me to come on with you, just get in touch and let me know, and we'll see what we do.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. We're so glad we connected.
I will. Oh, and one last thing. I will also be relaunching the Global Freedom Report in the very, very near future. I'm setting up my flagship station, getting a new studio in. This is an actual broadcast, on-air broadcast, and it will be coming back very, very soon. And information will be out there all over the place. I have several Telegram rooms. You want access to that? When you go onto my website and you look under the conference call section at the bottom, there's a blue button, bright blue button, join Brent on Telegram. Click that. It'll take you right into my Telegram room.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we connected and made it happen. I'll separate this into 2 videos, and we'll do a dedicated one to your section here. Thanks, Erica, for getting a hold of Brent and having him join our show. And we look forward to the next broadcast. We did talk about in the beginning about the moose and the special relationship I had with her. So if you guys want to stick around, I'll throw those pictures up. Brent, if you don't want to, feel free to hop out, and then we'll just end the show. So
yeah, I'm going to have to. I have several things I have to get to, so I will have to.
Thanks,
Brent.
Brent.
This time we'll do it with the right timing.
Yes. Okay. We'll connect.
God bless.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless
Thanks
you all.
God bless you as well. Okay. Bye now. Okay. So.
Oh, whoops.
All right. So I'm going to just post some pictures. The chat room's still open. So if you guys have any questions about her, we did talk about her 2.5 hours ago, but she's no longer with us. There's extenuating circumstances about it. But I just thought I'd pop these pictures up. Her name is Roxy. She was 17 to 20 something years old and spent every day for 4 to 5 months every winter in my yard for the last 17 years. Sorry. We lost her last Saturday. And they did try to tranquilize her and kidnap her 3 years ago. Our wildlife people are big advocates. If somebody complains, they immediately just relocate the animals. And I fought. This is one of my greatest justice victories, by the way, because I fought. That's me. I sat there and held onto her neck and said, you're going to have to call the police because you're kidnapping an animal that's lived in a neighborhood for 20 years with her babies. She had brand new twins. And you're going to put her in the wild where there's actual threats, mountain lions and things like that. And thank God they left her. And we had another 3 years with her, but she'd sleep on my back porch. I started putting straw there for her. And then we just built a beautiful relationship. And I can't even explain it. I'm so lucky and so blessed. So it's been very painful, hole in my heart. But she did have some injuries, some pressure sores on her back legs, though she could still get around. She was in pain. And, that's the saving grace of it. And here, don't mind my my morning attire, but she showed up, and we got to the point. This was last winter that I would her. So that's it. It was pretty incredible. Let me get rid of this picture here. Sorry. And she was a wild animal, and in the last few years, because she was old and her legs were hurt and she'd come with infections, I was able to clean the infections and give her food in the winter, and it was pretty incredible. And all her babies for 17 years come through our yard, so I'm hoping I see some this year because I miss her terribly, and it hurts my heart to know she won't come. It was the highlight of my winter. She'd always show up in December. But, God's earth is incredible, and sometimes there's a creature that just, from the wild, decides it loves humans, and she was one of them. All the other ones are wild. They won't come near, even though she's brought them here. So it was pretty special. So that's it, gang. That's my Roxy. She is actually on YouTube. I started putting some videos of her some years ago, and decided to stop doing that because people don't understand, and they started commenting. And so I just said, well, we'll just leave it private. But since she's gone, I decided to just share and honor her. So thank you all for joining us. It was a long one today, huh, Erica?
I am amazed at the capacity that I have to sit for hours and hours and hours just learning and digesting as much as I can, because that's how important I feel like it is. That I don't know.
It's very important. I look forward to having Brent on again. He was great. And make sure everybody go to his website. I'm definitely going to get his book and do the same thing with my daughter as well, and have her start going through that. So, all right. Well, let's see. No more questions. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll see you in there on the chat. If you have any questions about Brent, just go ahead and put them again in the Telegram chat, and we'll do our best to get them to him. And you've got his information numerous times. So.
And I really recommend calling on Tuesday nights, because you can ask whatever you want. If you get a personal consultation with them, it's $250 an hour. So this is kind of the workaround to get some of your questions answered, to ask some of those things that are just like specific just for what you want to know. And if you want to know it, then lots of other people probably have the same question too. So I really highly recommend the Tuesday night conference call.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. All right, my friend. Well, let's say goodbye, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Okay, bye, you guys.